Well, now that's the view from China, but what difference will an Obama or a Romney victory make to us?
In his first 4 years, Barack Obama continued with Bush's mantle as a warrior president. As disengaging in Iraq, he stepped up in Afghanistan, only subsequently promising to pull combat troops out by 2015. He's also stepped up the highly controversial era of targeted drone attacks, mainly in Pakistan. In Africa, despite his own parentage, he has proved less proactive than his predecessor George Bush, who devoted large quantities of development money to combating AIDS. He has also produced no new Middle East initiatives and failed to rein in Israeli settlement development even after he had publicly demanded a freeze.
This construction violates previous agreements and undermines efforts to achieve peace. It is time for these settlements to stop.
Thank you so much.
And what of Mitt Romney? Keen to be seen with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu in Israel, he reassured American Jews he would defend Israel to the hilt. Might he support military action against Iran? What would he do to reverse the Obama military cuts, given the parlous state of US public spending? Two challenges to whomsoever becomes president: Syria, Iran and the Arab Spring, and adjusting to the ever-emerging China.
Well, joining us now to discuss America's foreign policy is Michele Flournoy, a former Undersecretary of Defense in the Obama administration, and she's in fact the most senior post holder in the Pentagon that's ever been as a woman. So let me ask you, Michele Flournoy, that gaping wound in foreign affairs, which is the unresolved crisis in the Middle East, particularly the Palestinian-Israeli, do you see a difference between these two candidates?
You know, it's very hard to tell, John. What I can say is President Obama has a record of strong and steady leadership globally, and I think he's kept his eye on the ball and really used American power and influence where possible to shape events.
But unlike Romney has talked very strong on Israel and supporting it.
Yes.
Mr. Obama looked as if he was going to be tough on Israel. He was tough on settlements and then collapsed.
I wouldn't say it collapsed. I think what we need for Middle East peace is strong American leadership, but also two willing partners. I think historically when there's been progress on this issue, it's been in second-term American administrations, and I think you could look to this next administration for renewed efforts on that score.
Let's look at Iran, because all the way up to this, people have dreaded that in this interregnum, in this period of campaigning, there might be an Israeli strike on Iran. Mr. Romney seemed to be reasonably sympathetic to going after Iran. The president a little more cautious.
I think the president's been very clear. The objective is to prevent Iran's acquisition of nuclear weapons, that all options are on the table. We owe it to ourselves and to the people of the region to try to make sure that we resolve this issue without the resort to use of force and risking another conflict in the Middle East if possible. You know, when I listened to the foreign policy debate a couple of weeks ago, Romney was basically endorsing the president's line on this issue.
Well, that was a different Romney from the one that has also been out pretty heavily criticizing.
This is one of the challenges. The Romney of the primaries was a neoconservative, very sharp in his differences and sharp in his criticism of the president. The Romney we saw in the general election has been seeming to embrace a lot of the president's very pragmatic and centrist positions.
Okay, a challenge. Nixon in China, Obama in Iran? Engaging? What?
I think it will be wherever it needs to be. I think it will certainly be trying to bring a peaceful resolution to the Iranian problem, but I think also making some real progress in the Middle East, both in terms of shaping the landscape of these resolutions, but also striving towards peace between Israel and the Palestinians.
And finally, back to China. China seems to be tricky for both candidates. Jobs, American jobs going to China. Where do you see that?
Tremendous economic interdependence between China and the United States. I think the Chinese understand that this relationship also always becomes part of the heated political rhetoric of campaigns. But this administration has been very steady in its pursuit of a cooperative and comprehensive relationship with China. I think if the president is reelected for a second term, you will see more continuity than change in trying to build that relationship on a positive footing.
Michele Flournoy, thank you very, very much for talking to us.
Thank you.
After the break, the get out the vote machine, the like of which we have simply never seen before.